Millionaire gets home early, sees wife kicking black Maid's daughter. What he does shocks all. Jonathan came home early, hoping for a peaceful Friday afternoon. But what he saw froze him in place. His wife was standing over the maid's 8-year-old daughter, tears streaming down her face, a broken vase at her feet. Fear and cruelty filled the room. And what Jonathan did next? It shocked everyone and would change their lives forever. The sound of high heels clicking across the marble floor echoed through the mansion, followed by the dull crash of something small hitting the wall. Jonathan Rivers, CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech company, paused at the entrance to the living room, still holding his car keys. He had returned home early, hoping for a quiet Friday afternoon with his family, but what he saw froze him in place. In the corner of the room, a small figure cowered. Tears streaked down the face of an 8-year-old girl, her hands clutching a broken vase. Blood trickled from a cut on her knee. Standing over her was Vivian, his wife of 3 years, her expression sharp with anger and cruelty he had never seen before. "How many times have I told you not to touch my things?" Vivian hissed, pointing a manicured finger at the terrified girl. Jonathan's mind raced. This was Lila, the daughter of their longtime housekeeper, Carmen. He had watched her grow up, polite, curious, intelligent, and always respectful. But now he realized that in the absence of his supervision, the girl was enduring fear and abuse. "Please, I was only trying to help clean," Lila whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to—" Vivian's hand rose as if to strike her, and something inside Jonathan snapped. For 3 years, he had been blind to the true nature of the woman he married. Polite, charming, perfect in front of guests. Vivian now revealed the darkness she hid from him. A carefully constructed mask hiding a cruel, manipulative heart. Jonathan's voice cut through the tension, steady but filled with authority. "Vivian, stop!" She turned sharply, her face morphing from anger to feigned innocence. "Jonathan, I didn't hear you come in. This girl broke a vase, that's all." But Jonathan saw the truth in Lila's eyes, the fear, the caution, the way she had learned to anticipate punishment. He knelt to her level, careful not to startle her further. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. The girl nodded, her tiny frame trembling. "Has this happened before?" Jonathan asked gently. Lila's silence said everything. Vivian cleared her throat, trying to regain composure. "Jonathan, it's just a lesson about responsibility," she said smoothly. But Jonathan could see through her words for the first time. He understood the extent of the control Vivian had exercised, not just over a child, but over an entire household. The seemingly innocent girl had been living in fear for years, and he had been blind to it. This moment in the quiet of the living room would change everything. Jonathan turned to Vivian, his voice calm but firm. "We need to talk, but not here. You need to understand that actions have consequences." He looked at Lila, kneeling close to her, offering comfort and protection. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you while I'm here." As Vivian's social mask began to slip, Jonathan realized the depth of manipulation he had been subjected to. For 3 years, he had built an empire, believing he had control over everything. But this revealed that true power lay not in wealth, but in courage, justice, and the willingness to stand for what's right. Jonathan knew one thing for certain: nothing in this house, or in his life, would ever be the same again. Jonathan guided Lila to the kitchen, careful to shield her from Vivian's watchful eyes. Carmen, her mother, was there, frozen, mid-step, carrying groceries. The fear in her gaze mirrored her daughter's. Jonathan's heart ached as he took in the signs he had missed for years. The subtle tension, the quiet resignation, the way Lila's small hand never left her mother's side. "Mom," Lila whispered, her voice trembling. "He's here. Will he help us?" Jonathan crouched to her level again. "Yes, Lila, I promise. You can tell me everything and nothing bad will happen to you or your mother." Carmen hesitated, her lips pressed together as if bracing for a storm. But seeing Jonathan's calm, determined expression, she finally spoke. "It's been going on since the beginning. Almost every day when he's away." Her voice shook. "Vivian!" She makes Lila fear her own shadow. She humiliates her, punishes her over the smallest mistakes. and threatens me, says I'll lose my job if I interfere. Jonathan's chest tightened. The reality hit harder than he had imagined. Vivian wasn't just cruel in moments of anger. This was a carefully orchestrated reign of control, psychological abuse, and intimidation. The mansion, with all its wealth and luxury, had become a cage for a little girl. Lila, encouraged by her mother's courage, whispered the details. She tells me I'll never have the same chances as other children because of our color and our money. She says we should be grateful we're even allowed here. Her tiny voice broke Jonathan's heart. And if I tell anyone, she threatens to ruin us, make my mom lose her job, send us away. Jonathan clenched his fists, but forced himself to remain calm. Anger surged, but he knew that acting rashly now could make things worse for Lila and Carmen. Every word he heard strengthened his resolve. Vivian's cruelty was systematic, intentional, and rooted in a sense of superiority and control. She had manipulated them for years, and he had unknowingly allowed it by trusting appearances. Carmen, Jonathan said gently, you did nothing wrong. None of this is your fault. But now we're going to make sure it ends. We're going to protect Lila, and no one will ever intimidate you again. Carmen's eyes welled with tears. I feared for this day, but I never imagined it could truly end without consequences. Jonathan nodded. He realized that confronting Vivian directly without evidence could escalate the situation, putting both mother and daughter at risk. What they needed was a plan, a way to expose the truth without giving Vivian the chance to retaliate. He pulled out his phone and began recording notes, documenting every detail. Every threat, every instance of abuse, every calculated comment from Vivian would be captured. And if needed, it would be enough to protect Lila and hold Vivian accountable. Jonathan looked at Lila, her eyes wide and cautious, and spoke softly. You've been brave beyond your years. I promise from this moment on, you won't have to live in fear. You're safe with me, and we're going to make sure the world sees the truth about what's been happening here. Outside the kitchen, Vivian's laughter rang through the house, oblivious to the storm she had set in motion. Jonathan knew the time for passive observation had passed. This was not just about wealth or appearances anymore. It was about justice, morality, and the courage to act when the vulnerable needed protection. Jonathan stayed in the kitchen, watching Lila and Carmen quietly whispering to each other. The calm in the room was fragile, like a glass waiting to shatter. He knew he had to act carefully. Any sudden move could push Vivian to escalate her cruelty, and he couldn't risk the safety of the child or her mother. He excused himself silently and returned to his home office, his mind racing. The first step was documentation. Every incident, every harsh word, every subtle threat needed to be recorded, not just for proof, but to ensure that when the time came, Vivian's carefully hidden cruelty would be undeniable. Jonathan called his lawyer, Diana Rodriguez, a civil rights and family law expert he had met through professional networking. She answered immediately, sensing the urgency in his voice. Diana, I need your help. It's serious. A child is being psychologically abused in my own home. Her mother has been threatened, and I fear for both of their safety. There was a brief pause before Diana replied, calm yet sharp. Jonathan, legally, you are in a strong position. But this is delicate. You must protect the child and gather evidence without alerting Vivian. I can be there within 40 minutes. Start documenting everything immediately, conversations, incidents, threats. If Vivian reacts, stay calm and keep recording. Jonathan's pulse quickened. He knew Vivian's manipulations would escalate once she sensed he was onto her. But he was ready. He activated discreet internal cameras and recording devices in key areas of the mansion, ensuring every word, every interaction, and every micro-expression could be captured without alerting her. Back in the kitchen, Lila hesitated before speaking again, her small hand gripping Carmen's. Mr. Jonathan, can we trust you? She asked quietly, her wide eyes reflecting years of fear and doubt. Jonathan knelt to meet her gaze. Yes, Lila, I promise you'll be safe. No one will hurt you or your mother again. And everything Vivian has done, people will know the truth. Carmen, still tense, nodded slightly, taking courage from Jonathan's presence. It's been so long since we felt safe. "I've been afraid to speak, afraid she would destroy everything we have," she whispered. Jonathan's resolve hardened. Vivian had used fear and economic leverage as tools of control, but now she would face someone unafraid and well-prepared. Every threat, every calculated insult, every manipulative tactic would be exposed. He returned to the living room quietly, pretending nothing had changed. Vivian, completely unaware, continued her usual theatrics, a mix of elegance and superiority, her voice sharp as she criticized household management. Jonathan observed her every word, every gesture, every pause. The trap she had laid for years was about to be turned against her. Jonathan's mind was already strategizing the next move. He would confront Vivian publicly, not recklessly, but in a way that no one could ignore. Her abuse would be revealed to the world, her social mask torn away, and Lila and Carmen finally freed from years of fear. For the first time, Jonathan felt complete clarity. Wealth and power had never been enough to see the truth, but courage, intelligence, and careful planning would ensure justice. Vivian's reign of cruelty was about to end, and the consequences of her actions would be unavoidable. Vivian continued pacing the living room, her platinum blonde hair perfectly in place, her voice a mixture of charm and superiority as she criticized minor household missteps. Jonathan entered quietly, tablet in hand, pretending to review work notes, but inside he was calculating every word, every gesture, preparing for the first confrontation. He stopped near the doorway, letting her rant for a few moments before speaking in a calm, deliberate tone. "Vivian, we need to talk." She turned instantly, her expression shifting from casual superiority to faint surprise. "Jonathan, darling, is something wrong?" "I was just organizing things." Jonathan's gaze hardened. "No, Vivian, something is very wrong, and I know exactly what's been happening in my house while I was away." Vivian's lips tightened, her carefully constructed mask faltering for a fraction of a second. She quickly replaced it with practiced sweetness. "Jonathan, you're overreacting. This is just about a broken vase." "Children make mistakes." Jonathan ignored the comment and held up his tablet, displaying discreetly captured footage of Vivian berating Lila, her threats to Carmen, and the subtle manipulations she had perfected over 3 years. Vivian's eyes widened in shock as she realized her private cruelty was now undeniable. "You see this?" Jonathan's voice remained calm but edged with authority. "This is not a simple mistake, Vivian. This is years of psychological abuse, intimidation, and manipulation. And it ends now." Vivian attempted to laugh it off, her voice sharp and fake. "Jonathan, this is ridiculous. You're taking a child's story out of context. Surely you know." Jonathan raised a hand, cutting her off. "No, Vivian. I know exactly what's been happening. Lila and Carmen have been living in fear of you for years. Your threats, your control, your twisted lessons about social hierarchy, they're all here." He tapped the tablet. "And now the world will know. The people who matter, the charities you volunteer for, the clubs, your social contacts, they're all about to see the real you." Vivian's face paled, and for the first time, her composure cracked. She stumbled over her words. "Jonathan, you don't? This isn't—" Jonathan ignored her protests and calmly stepped aside, inviting Carmen and Lila into the room. Lila's small hand clutched her mother's, but there was a flicker of courage in her eyes now. Jonathan knelt to Lila's level. "You've been brave enough to survive this for years. Now it's your voice that will help end it." Carmen, encouraged by Jonathan's calm authority, added quietly, "It's time the truth is known. No one should ever fear the person who is supposed to protect them." Vivian tried to regain control, but the shift in power was unmistakable. Jonathan had carefully documented her cruelty. The evidence was irrefutable, and now her manipulations, her threats, and her sense of superiority would be exposed. The mansion, once her domain, had become a place where justice was finally in motion. Jonathan's mind raced with the next steps: legal support, public accountability, and protecting Lila from further harm. He knew Vivian was dangerous, cunning, and manipulative, but he also knew that careful strategy, courage, and evidence would dismantle her carefully constructed empire of fear. And as Vivian's facade continued to crumble, Jonathan felt something he hadn't felt in years: clarity. Courage and justice would prevail. Not wealth, not status, not charm. Only the truth had that power. Vivian stood frozen, her carefully crafted mask of elegance and superiority finally slipping. Jonathan held the tablet steady, each video, each recording, a mirror reflecting her cruelty. Every smirk, every harsh word, every manipulative threat had been captured, and now there was no hiding from it. Jonathan's voice was calm, controlled, but filled with unwavering authority. "Vivian, the world is about to see the truth. No more lies, no more manipulation. The abuse of an innocent child and her mother ends today." Vivian's lips quivered as she tried to regain control. "Jonathan, you don't understand. This is just discipline. I'm teaching her lessons, preparing her for reality." Jonathan shook his head. "Discipline? Threatening a child, making her fear for her mother's job, teaching her that her worth depends on her social class. That's not reality, Vivian. That's abuse. And it's been going on far too long." From the kitchen, Carmen and Leila watched silently, their hands clasped tightly. The courage in their eyes had grown over the last hours, strengthened by Jonathan's presence. Leila took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Miss Vivian, you hurt us. You said girls like me should know our place. You made me scared of my own home. But Mr. Jonathan helped me understand. Bullies only have power when no one is watching." The words struck Vivian like a blow. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her calm, composed persona, the one that had fooled Jonathan, friends, and even her own family, was crumbling under the weight of her own actions. Jonathan took a deep breath. "Vivian, I've contacted Diana Rodriguez. She's a civil rights and family law expert. She's here to ensure that everything you've done is addressed properly, legally, socially, and ethically. You will be held accountable for the psychological abuse and intimidation you've inflicted." Vivian's eyes darted to the doorway, realizing the trap was set, the evidence irrefutable. The power she had wielded for years was evaporating before her eyes. She tried to speak again, her voice trembling. "Jonathan, this is unfair." Unfair?" Jonathan cut in sharply. "No, Vivian. This is justice. You've been living in a bubble of wealth and manipulation, thinking appearances could hide cruelty. But the truth has a way of coming out." Jonathan pressed a few buttons on the tablet. The recordings were now live-streamed to key contacts, business leaders, charitable organizations, and social circles that had once respected Vivian. Comments and reactions flooded in, shock, outrage, and disbelief. Her reputation, painstakingly built over decades, began to collapse in real time. Carmen finally spoke, her voice steady and firm. "You taught my daughter fear and shame, but we will no longer live under it. The world will know your true character." Leila nodded, stepping closer to Jonathan. "No one should be scared in their own home, not ever. And you taught me that courage matters more than fear." Vivian's face turned pale. She realized that her control, her power, and her carefully constructed social image had been destroyed by the very people she thought she could manipulate. And worst of all, she had done it herself, underestimating Jonathan's intelligence and determination. Jonathan's eyes met hers, calm but unwavering. "It's over, Vivian. Justice will be served, and you will never have power over fear again." For the first time, the mansion, the symbol of wealth, control, and cruelty, felt like a place of accountability, truth, and courage. The mansion, once filled with tension and fear, now felt different. Vivian sat in stunned silence, her carefully crafted world crumbling around her. Jonathan stood firm, tablet in hand, watching as the consequences of her actions unfolded. Social contacts, charitable organizations, and business leaders, all witnessing the truth, began distancing themselves. The facade of elegance and control had been shattered, replaced by undeniable evidence of cruelty and manipulation. In the kitchen, Carmen held Leila close. Tears of relief streamed down her face as she finally allowed herself to breathe. "It's over," she whispered, the weight of years of fear lifting slightly. Leila, her eyes wide but shining with newfound courage, nodded. "I'm not scared anymore," she said softly. "Not when Mr. Jonathan is here." Jonathan smiled gently at them, his heart swelling with pride and empathy. "You've both been incredibly brave," he said. "Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about standing up even when you are scared. And you did that every day, without anyone seeing. Vivian, realizing the full scope of her downfall, tried one last desperate plea. "Jonathan, think about our life. Our reputation. You can't—" Jonathan interrupted calmly, his voice steady and resolute. "Vivian, what we had wasn't life, it was fear, and I will never allow anyone to use fear to control innocent people under my roof again." The live stream continued, comments flooding in, expressions of outrage, support, and solidarity for Carmen and Lila. Organizations began severing ties, memberships were revoked, and volunteer positions were canceled. Vivian's carefully curated world of power and influence was now a cautionary tale of arrogance, cruelty, and self-deception. Carmen looked at Jonathan with tears in her eyes. "How can we ever thank you?" she asked. Jonathan shook his head. "No thanks needed. The only thanks I need is knowing you and Lila are safe." "That's enough." Lila stepped forward, her small hand reaching out to Jonathan. "Mr. Jonathan, I understand now. Good people don't care about money or skin color. They care about what's inside a person, and you've shown me that." Jonathan knelt to her level, smiling warmly. "Exactly, Lila. Courage, kindness, and standing up for what's right. Those are what make someone truly powerful." The mansion, once a symbol of fear and control, now felt like a place of protection and justice. Vivian remained seated, defeated, realizing that no amount of wealth, charm, or manipulation could protect her from truth and accountability. Jonathan turned to Lila and Carmen. "From now on, this home will be a place where you are safe, respected, and valued. Nothing will ever take that away from you again." As the sun set outside, casting golden light across the marble floors, a sense of calm and hope filled the house. Justice had been served, courage had triumphed, and innocence had been protected. And for Lila, Carmen, and Jonathan, life was no longer ruled by fear. It was guided by compassion, truth, and the unwavering power of standing up for what is right. The story of that mansion. A fear turned to courage, cruelty turned to accountability, and injustice transformed into hope would not soon be forgotten. If this story of courage, truth, and justice inspires you, hit like, share it with everyone who needs to see it, and subscribe, because standing up for what's right is the power we all carry inside.